Hello there, how are you going? I've got a great topic this afternoon, which is something that I see quite often. And the topic is, are you lonely in your marriage? You know what? It's really confronting to even admit to yourself, yeah, I am, Helen. I actually am really lonely. But God forbid that I tell anybody. There's a lot of shame. There's a lot of hiding. There can be a lot of guilt because how have I contributed to this loneliness? So today's live, I want to talk into what's going on for you. Ask you some really good quality questions as to what you can do to begin to change this, and also be able to let go of some of the walls that you may have up, some of the fantasies, and really get back into reality of where you are and how did you get here. So a lot of you may know that I've worked in marriage therapy, decade and a half now. So I've worked with a lot of couples, and this is really, really common. I'm lonely. And for both parties to actually admit that they're lonely is extremely confronting, because you don't want to go there and you don't want to go to what the possibilities are. But what I've seen is that the more this stays underground, and it's like a nasty little weeping sore that actually never quite gets healed or fixed. If it doesn't get aired and moved, it festers and it sort of taps you. And when I say taps you, the resistance that you feel in your body because you're pissed off, you're lonely. You might have tried date night. You might have tried communicating where inside you got this rage inside of you, but you're trying to communicate effectively. You might have done everything. You've Googled, how do I fix my marriage? And you've put it into Google and you've come up with different ideas, and you each day, okay, today's the day where we're going to really start opening this up. And you may have tried and it may not have worked, and then you might have tried again. So what I want to talk into is, first of all, the 4 R's that I see in relationships. And the first one is the resistance, is when you're feeling that resistance in your body, what do you do with that? Do you talk about it with yourself first and then with your partner? Because what I've noticed over the years, the 4 R's, if you don't move that resistance, that then turns into resentment, and it's an energy that's a lot stronger, and it's a harder energy to actually ignore. You might try to speak to your partner, but are they open to even hearing what you've got to say? That's the issue. So if you don't clear out resistance, and if you don't clear out resentment, that then turns into rejection, and that is a lot more serious. And I often see couples when they're at generally the 3 or 4 year mark. Look, this is not the same for everybody, but there definitely is a theme that comes through. So the rejection is a bit more serious, is where you are rejecting each other. You might be watching TV in different rooms. You might not be even socially doing things together. You may not even be in a bed together. There's a real energy of rejection between you both. And then the last phase that I see is repression. Repression is shit. If you're in that place, you got to do a lot of work. And you know what? It's not just one of you. You actually both have to do work. Because if you're feeling lonely in your marriage, your partner will also be feeling that, no doubt. But what we tend to do when we're in that place is we don't want to go there. Because if we begin to open this up, God forbid what's going to happen. So we might drink, we might eat, we might overwork. We'll do all these vices. You would have heard all of this before. We do all these vices so that we actually don't have to sit with what we're feeling. But you know what? I really want to get to the core of what I want to talk about. Well, first of all, these 4 R's, you got to move them. And if you're on rejection or repression, you got a lot of work to do, both of you. But you both need to do it. It's not one of you. You both have to. So you might be listening to this and going, oh, Helen, that's all well and good, but my partner doesn't want to know anything about this. If that's you, what do you think needs to happen? What do you think needs to change? If you're with a partner who isn't willing to look at this, I'll give you a bit of an idea. You cannot change your partner. You cannot boss your partner. You cannot tell your partner. You cannot live in expectations that you would like your partner to look at this. You can't do any of that. Your partner is either going to value the relationship and is going to put the work in that is needed, or they're not. Full stop. And that, if you're on the receiving end of that, is so friggin' confronting. I know that well. I'm out of a 30-year marriage, and I lived in the potential of who I thought my partner could be. I had expectations. I did everything I possibly could. At the end of the day, he didn't want to do the work that was involved because it's confronting. You got to be vulnerable. You got to look at your shit. Who wants to do that? And who am I to say that my partner should do that? And yes, the marriage did end. Look, I can say it now because I've processed it, I've healed, I've integrated, and I look back, it was the biggest freaking gift that was given to me, because I had to grow into who I needed to become for me to accept the reality that I was with a partner who didn't want to look at it. You've got no control over any of this. Your partner will either look at this or they won't. So if you are feeling lonely in your marriage, it's the quality of questions that you ask yourself. Okay, am I putting up walls because I'm pissed off at my partner because they won't look at it? What can you begin to do to let some of those walls down? What behavior can I do so that this will support me with where I'm at and where I'm at in my marriage? All I would say is that if you are lonely in your marriage, you first of all have to create a rich, dynamic, I'll call it soulful relationship with yourself. It's a freaking godsend. And what I mean by that is when we are putting our energy outside of ourselves and living in hope that our partner will change and get on board and want to look at this, we have to let that go, and we've got to bring it back to ourselves and bring it back to the authenticity within yourself. It's about having a rich inward relationship with yourself. I love the work that I do. I'm in my room right now. And look, I do some of my work online, but I also do it in my room. And I sit over there and I have my couples in front of me, and I do it very, very intentionally because it's all about energy. It's all about energy exchange. And so for it's each person, in fact, just let me show you. So that's, I don't know if this is going to work. Anyway, let's turn it around. So a client sits there, and a client sits there, and I sit over here. Anyway, I don't know if you can still hear me. And it's all about each individual staying in their own lane. You have to land in and do your own inner work. And what I mean by that is find peace with yourself. If you are dependent on your partner getting on board and doing this work with you, that just sets you up. You can get triggered into hopelessness. You can feel quite powerless, particularly if they're not going to do any of this work. So bring it back to yourself. Start with yourself first. Start growing into who you need to become to create the relationship and the marriage that you want. So if you're lonely in your marriage, get a rich, contented relationship with yourself first. And you're probably thinking, well, how do I do that, Helen? I get it. Stopping and start beginning a really disciplined practice. I call it landing. I call it coming in. I call it coming home. It's been my friggin' saving grace. It's kept me on the planet. It's kept me sane. It's beautiful Because when you can create that rich relationship with yourself, you're not dependent on your partner. I want to be with you. I want to create energy with you. I want to create lusty love with you because I want to. It isn't caught up with any type of expectation or any type of reliance or codependency. That's the key with all of this, is for you both as individuals to do your own inner work, and then let's see what's there in your relationship. I want to touch into the ego because this could be really helpful, because I know I'm running out of time and I can have a really good yak. I want to tap into the ego. The ego, a really good way to describe the ego is that we all have an ego. And for a long time, our ego can be the driver of us. So imagine you're driving a bus and you're the driver of this bus and you are driving your ego. Now, when you begin doing your inner work, you will move the driver over, which is the ego, and you, the authentic you, will start driving your bus. So it's a very different energy. And when it's coming from the authentic you, you won't have any type of wanting to be in control. You'll just trust. If you are lonely in your marriage, there's a free fall. There's a process that you got to go through. It's about learning to trust where you are right now. And as humans, we do not like doing that. It's difficult, and I get it. But I've got a really great, what do I call it, my ego worksheet. If you want to know a little bit more about this, just DM message me and I'll send you the ego worksheet. Look, I've got so engrossed in this conversation that I haven't even checked in. Hello, Candice. Hello, Christy. It's so nice to see you there. Look, I really hope this is being of value to you. I get a bit passionate and I freaking get on a bit of a rant, so I do apologise. Look, give me a thumbs up if this has been of any value to you. Look, if you're lonely in your relationship, the first and most important relationship is to begin with you. So what is one question that you can ask yourself where you can start having a relationship with yourself? How can I start filling up my own cup first? Because when we are reliant and we're looking out at our relationship, man, that sets us up for a lot of pain. So building it up in yourself first, you then are going to be able to have the difficult conversations with your partner because there's an inward strength. You've built up your cup within yourself. You've built up your inner knowingness, your inner groundedness. You've got this deep connection with yourself because that is what is needed. In a healthy, happy relationship, it's about having that with yourself first, then you can start opening it up. But when we're reliant on our partner to do their work, cut that. Bring it back to yourself first. Do your own inner work. I hope I've covered everything that I wanted to touch on. Actually, I will just quickly touch on, it's not your job to make your partner happy. It's actually your job to make you happy. And I know that can just seem very foreign for some of you. I get that. But your happiness is an inner job. It's an inside job. And it's learning how to give that to yourself. Then you can be there for your partner. But without an agenda, without any type of control, there'll be no ego. It's coming from the authentic you because you genuinely want to be there for your partner. So look, if I round all of this up, if you're lonely in your relationship, Google the ego. Also, DM me for the ego worksheet. That'll give you some really good quality questions and some pointers to support you because it's all about connecting with the authentic you, the real you. And then with that, you'll be able to have the difficult conversations. Look, if you are lonely in your marriage, It takes a lot of vulnerability, but also patience and persistence. This isn't something that's going to shift overnight. It's having the difficult conversations with yourself first, and then in time, as the strength builds inside of you, you'll be able to have them with your partner. But I really do hope this has been helpful. Just message me. More than happy to answer questions. I live and breathe this stuff, and my whole thing is to give you some value. And if this has been helpful, please message on this. Anyway, I will see you next Thursday. And you know what? The power of change is within you. See ya.